Thank you for being here. I'm Tamara White, founder of Bader and Simon. We're scheduled to open in Cincinnati in 2026, but right now we're doing an online exhibit that is focused on queer art. And today we have Alex DiFrancesco, who is the author of the dystopian novel All City, the story collection reflecting trans realities, Transmutation, and the memoir Breaking the Curse. Patrick Cortell wrote in the New York Times, "At the effective core of transmutation is the question of how we can offer shelter for one another's pain, real and imagined." They are the winner of a 2022 Ohio Arts Council Individual Excellence Award.
Thanks.
And their novel All City was the first award finalist by a transgender author for the Ohio Anna Book Awards in its 80th year history. They served as an assistant editor for Sundress Publications in Tennessee and edited LGBTQIA nonfiction for Jessica Kingsley Publishers. Their work has appeared in Tin House, Electric Literature, Pacific Standard, Eater, and Volume 1 Brooklyn, among others. For being here.
Thank you for having
I
me.
wanted to start by talking about you've written numerous books, but they're all across very different forms in some ways. A story collection, a dystopian novel, and now you have this memoir. I guess I'm sort of curious about your interest in doing those three different things, but when an idea arrives, how do you know which bucket to put it in? Or is it just three separate, maybe you're always coming up with ideas?
Yeah, I'm kind of a big believer that there's something a little like mystical and magical about making art. And that when things come to us, we kind of have to respect them for what they are. So if a story comes to me very quickly, like that's like a short story. If I'm having sort of like longer thoughts about it, that fits more into a novel category. And, then if I want to tell a story that's true to life, obviously memoir is where I go. But I honestly feel that these stories kind of assert themselves and you have to have respect for what they wish to be. Yeah.
It's funny when you're saying that. I don't remember where I read this, but Tom Waits had said these ideas are like little fairies, and if you don't grab them, you'll lose them. And just to your point, like there are these little ideas that just drop in on you. Um, well, I was saying that Tom Waits talks about these fairies that these kind of like little idea fairies that they drop in on you. And if you don't grab them, then they're gone. And you have to
Yeah.
seize the moment. And so maybe they're also little fairies that are within the dystopian realm and the memoir realm.
I love that. I think there's a Elizabeth Gilbert quote where she talks about how Tom Waits he sits at his studio every day and he does it for like hours a day and that's his writing time. So there was this song that kept like asserting itself to him when he was like driving his car. And finally he just like stops in the middle of traffic and says, I'm in my studio like 8 hours a day. You can come to me then, or you can go bother Leonard Cohen because I can't write this song down right now. Yeah, I love that.
That's great. It's funny.
Yeah.
I was just listening to Leonard Cohen this morning, so that's a perfect analogy. And then in All Cities, the New York Times, it imagines New York after a catastrophic superstorm, but it's sort of symbolic where it's really about who gets left behind and who gets to rebuild. What were there real life observations or personal nuances that sort of triggered the idea or played into the story?
Yeah, I mean, I was in New York during Superstorm Sandy, which most people think of Superstorm Sandy and they think of what happened in the major parts of New York, like Manhattan, which was not that much. It flooded a little bit and things were okay. But out in places like the Rockaways and Staten Island, things were just destroyed. And I was doing a lot of recovery work around Superstorm Sandy. So I kind of got a better picture of what the destruction was really like. And because these areas were, not the wealthy areas of New York, it was help was a little slower to come, and recovery happened a little bit slower. So there was that, but then there was also I don't remember how long after it was, after Superstorm Sandy this was, but Banksy, the artist, did a month-long residency in New York, sometime after Superstorm Sandy, and did a different installation piece in an undisclosed location every day. And there's a subplot in All City where there's a graffiti artist who is creating these murals all over the destroyed city of New York. And that was inspired by the Banksy month-long residency in New York as well. So yeah, it had some real life inspirations. But as far as who gets left behind in that sort of situation, uh, it's written all over our history. All you have to do is read briefly about what happened in New Orleans during Hurricane
Yeah.
Katrina, or any major disasters in the United States, and who gets helped and who gets left behind.
Yeah, I immediately thought of New Orleans when you were speaking about this. Um, and then just separately from the book, I'm curious, did any or many of Banksy's pieces, last outside the recovery? Because I would imagine he was putting a lot of them on some of the debris.
I actually no, it was like a separate incident from
Oh, it was?
the superstorm like hitting New York. It was just two things that had inspired me. They were
Yeah,
unrelated, but they became
okay.
related in my mind because of their proximity to each other. And I worked at the Strand when Banksy's residency in New York was happening, and I worked in the basement, so I didn't have it's a giant bookstore, and I worked in the
Right.
basement there, and I didn't have cell phone reception when I was at work because I was in the basement. So, like, once a day, I would get to check the computer when I was on register, and the first thing I would do would be look up, like, where is Banksy's, like,
Where's
installation.
today's?
Yeah.
It's like a, scavenger hunt, a daily scavenger hunt.
Mhm.
The title, Transmutation, suggests change at an almost alchemist sort of level. How does the short story form let you explore trans realities in a way that a longer novel perhaps would not?
Well, it let me get a lot of different voices in there. In Transmutation, there are so many different characters coming from different perspectives, and some of them are trans and some of them are queer. And yeah, it allowed me to get a more sort of kaleidoscopic sort of effect. Where there's just more voices in a short story collection than you could probably fit as close close perspective to them than you could in a novel. Certainly, you can have many characters in a novel, but if you're changing perspectives as frequently as you are in a short story collection, it gets a little muddy, right? So using the short story collection format really allowed me to show lots of different perspectives and lots of different ways of approaching life and queerness.
Great. It's a broader focus, right? You can go 16 different directions in a way that a
Mhm.
novel couldn't. And and then your memoir is titled Breaking the Curse, so it's really turning the lens on yourself and looking inward. What or I guess I should say, did you have to unlearn anything going from these other styles of writing to a memoir?
So when I was a young writer, I only wanted to write fiction. But then as I started kind of like being a writer existing in the world outside of like a university setting, I was kind of coming up during the personal memoir boom, when everybody wanted first person narratives. So I started writing a lot of creative nonfiction then. Um, and I was writing a lot while I was in grad school. So I was studying fiction in grad school, but I also took as many creative nonfiction classes as I could. And I kind of learned the writing of both at the same time. So it's just like a different part of my brain. Um, I when I'm creating one narrative, I'm in this part of my brain, and when I'm creating this other narrative, I'm in this part of my brain. But they exist like parallel to each other, right? There has to be just as like real life has as many twists and turns as fiction does. And well, frequently, not always, I
Yeah.
guess. But it frequently does. And there's as much like metaphor and symbolism in real life as there is in fiction, I believe too. So it's just a matter of opening your eyes and seeing these things. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't know, I think there's so many things that we just I mean, now we're all staring at our phones, but there's so many things around us that we overlook, and I think it's an interesting was there sort of a way that you had to organize before you wrote to sit and think about all the things in your life that you wanted to put on the page? Or did it just sort of freely flow out of you?
Well, it's an essay collection. It's not like
Okay,
a just like written all the way through memoir.
got it.
So
Okay.
it was written in different like pieces, really. Yeah.
Oh, that's I love that. Um, and then you've also served as an editor and you've edited nonfiction. And so, from the vantage point, what stories do you think within queer publishing are still missing? Um,
So it's actually
are you waiting for something to materialize that you haven't seen yet?
it's actually kind of funny because I was a commissioning editor when I was working in publishing, and commissioning editors sort of help form the stories that are going to be printed along with the authors. So many of the books we commissioned were things that I already saw as gaps in like the publishing landscape. So some that I was particularly proud of was there was an anthology of trans for trans love stories that's coming out next year that I commissioned, which I had never seen a book like that before. There was a kids book called Queer Latin Heroes, and I had never seen a intersectional queer children's book that was the intersection of queer and Latin lives. I did a book on how therapists could better serve their sex worker clients. I did a book on the intersections of queerness and disability. And I did a book on authors that had experienced conversion therapy, a practical guide to relationship anarchy. So these are just some of the gaps that I saw and that I was able to
Wow.
help fill.
Yeah, we just had on the podcast a photographer from London. Her name is Osa Johannesson, and she has a book that is talking about images as queer. Not her subjects are queer, but she's really looking at the image itself and the language. And I thought sort of queer methodologies of images, which is not anything I had ever thought of or heard of before. So somebody's always coming up with something new, it seems.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Um, so you won an Ohio Arts Council Award. Congratulations. That was in 2022. How did this recognition or did this recognition and the funding behind it change anything for you? Did it change what was possible for you to explore and work within?
So I have a very strong belief that like arts are or shouldn't be competition based. I teach at a online MFA, and we just had a talk there with the author Chuck Tingle. I don't know if he's a queer author.
I don't know.
But he said something that was really, really, really important to me. And that was that in the arts, the winner's circle, we can make it as big as we want it to be. It doesn't have to be just room for one or two people in there. We can make it as big as we want it to be. And that's really what I believe. I applied for the Ohio Arts Council because award because it had a monetary cash award and I needed the money and I applied for it. But for the most part, I don't really apply for awards because I just believe that the arts exist in a realm that like is not of competition. I think that, if you stick with it and you get your work out there and don't let rejection stop you, you've won in the arts. You're a winner, right? And the idea that we should be competing for book awards or other things like that, I really don't love it. So I don't put a ton of stock into winning awards or applying for awards usually. And again, I did apply for that one because, that money was
Right.
something that I needed at the time. But for the most part, I don't have my publisher put my books in for awards. It's just not something I'm particularly interested in. I think that
Yeah.
we're all winners in the arts.
Yeah. I will say, so Bader and Simon, it's making me kind of go like this, cringe a little bit because we do have an empowerment grant that we provide once a year,
Mhm.
with a monetary award to it. But I will say, and so I really appreciate what you're saying because if we could afford, there's nothing more painstaking for me that we can only afford to give one award every year. And I hope that changes as we get bigger and have a bigger budget. But this last year, because and the other thing we do is our award is for people that don't have an MFA, they don't have extensive experience, and they get a show because we're trying to kind of get people on their way.
Yeah.
But this year, we decided we're going to do a group show with the top, I think, 10 or something, because we thought we can't give money to everybody, but we could give wall space and a show. And our artists get 100% of the sales of their work if they exhibit with us, which is different. But I can really appreciate what you're saying because we get so many applicants that are just, you can't choose them all as much as I would love to choose them all. And
Right.
so it is, I absolutely understand. It does become a circle.
But that idea that you're talking about of literally expanding the winner's circle, where it's like instead of one person just gets an award, 10 people get gallery space, like that's beautiful. That's like incredible. I love that.
And so is Breaking the Curse out or is it on its
Yeah,
way
it's
of
that
being
one has
published?
actually been out since 2024. I just
Okay.
released my newest one, which is The Grief Shop and Other Stories from a Broken World, which
Okay.
is an interconnected short story collection.
Okay. So it seems like the short story is sort of your thing.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people are hesitant a lot of publishers are hesitant to publish short stories. Mine
Really?
is not. Yeah, there's this like overarching kind of like publishing wisdom that like short story collections don't sell, which isn't actually true. There's like a lot of great short story collections out there, and with people having lessened attention spans from like social media and their phones, like short stories are perfect. But my publisher does not have that opinion that short story collections don't sell. Like they're great. They are willing to like kind of take chances on things that a lot of publishers are not willing to, so I really appreciate them.
That's great. No, I love short stories because I don't have enough time and I like
Mhm.
being able to sit down and read in the morning, but I can only read for X amount of time.
Yeah.
Um, so you have that book that has just come out, but do you have anything else that you're working on that's sort of in the pipeline?
Yeah, I have 2 more books coming out in the next
Oh my
year.
gosh. You
One
are busy.
is a, Pennsylvania Gothic sci-fi novel that takes place in coal country, Pennsylvania, and it has to do with a haunted young woman and the AI replica of her dead grandmother. And then I also have a retelling of the Odyssey that follows a pregnant trans man in who is riding a stolen jet ski around Lake Erie to find the man who impregnated him in a one night stand so he can get the money to go to New York City for an abortion.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Um, so I have to ask because I'm in a writing group. I'm part of Prose Playground, which Jocelyn Linder, who connected us, created. I'm with all these very prolific writers, and I'm curious what your writing sort of process and routine is. I have such a hard time getting my butt in the chair to sit down and write because life takes over. I get busy, but yet you are churning out books left and right, it seems.
So it's not only that I'm writing books, I also work full time as a pastry chef and part time as an adjunct creative writing professor. So I'm doing all of those things at once. But the way that I do the writing is that I wake up at like 4 o'clock every morning and I spend 2 hours in at my computer before anyone wakes up, before I'm getting emails, before my cell phone is pinging, and I just drink my coffee, and before I'm even fully awake, I try to get in writer's brain. And, being that in like half dream state is kind of good for creativity for me. So that's how I do it.
Okay. Yeah, see, I think I'm just lazy because this is what you have to do, it seems. I've heard other writers say the same thing. They get up before their families. They have to do it before they head off to work. And so somehow I just am not getting the pages in the way I should.
Well, it also works if you stay up later than everybody too. If you're a night
Right.
owl.
I
So you
guess
can
it
do that.
depends on whether you're the morning person or the night person. Um, anyway, that kudos to you because that is quite a schedule that you have.
Thank you.
Um, so we have questions we ask all our guests at the end, and the first is who would you like to find yourself stalled with in an elevator?
I think my answer to that would be so she recently passed away, but before her death, I would have chosen the tarot expert Rachel Pollack. And I would hope that one of us had brought our tarot cards because I feel like we could have a great conversation about tarot and read each other's cards.
Just ignore the fact that the elevator is broken. And
Yeah.
what art piece have you seen recently that had an impact on you?
So I'm gonna answer with my all-time favorite art piece, which is Symphony Number One, The Transcendental by Richard Poisson Dart. He was a contemporary of Jackson Pollock's, but he was kind of overshadowed by Pollock. And I first saw this piece at the Metropolitan Museum of Art when I was like 19 years old. And I used to just go and sit in front of it and write like all the time when I was in my early 20s. So that is one that I always loved.
Great. What song is the soundtrack of your life?
Anthem by Leonard Cohen.
This is the Leonard Cohen day. It's just like I actually started my day off not knowing that you were going to answer that. So
That's
perfect.
funny.
What social justice cause is most meaningful to you at this moment?
So I used to be really involved with a variety of social justice causes, but in the last few years, I've really focused on food justice. Everybody needs to eat. Everybody deserves a warm meal and the care that it takes to get it to them. Everybody.
Yep. And the last question is who most inspires you?
This is really the Leonard Cohen hour, but
Are
Leonard
you going to
Cohen.
tell me Leonard Cohen? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We didn't even plan this. It's so perfect. It's poetic. Um, so thank you for taking the time to speak with me. If people, do you have a website or any other way that you reach out to people on the
Yeah.
interwebs and Instagram and all the things?
My website is www.alexdifrancesco.com. On Instagram, I'm AlexDIF123, and on Blue Sky, I'm Alessandra Stardust. And yeah, you can find my email address on my website if you want to reach out.
Okay. I'm waiting for the Odyssey story. That just sounds great. So, well, thank you so much. Have a great day and thanks again for being here.
Thank you.